I wanted to talk about this rogue Republican who has gone on a rescue mission in Afghanistan. So there is a Republican member of the House. Here's a good New York Post article about it that went up yesterday. He's an Oklahoma representative called Mark Wayne Mullin, and he has personally launched an otherwise secret rescue mission to rescue a mother and 4 children, who I believe are American citizens, from Afghanistan, which I very much commend him for. This is what you want to see from your politicians. You don't want them to be criminalising you. You want them to be putting themselves on the line to help citizens, and this is a great example of that.
Well,
And,
what else are you going to do if the actual governments have pulled out and abandoned it? Then mercenaries and people are the only people who are going to be able to get in anyway, aren't they?
Well, they were abandoned by Joe Biden, I think.
Yeah.
It was very much him to blame for this. So, who is Mr. Mullin? He is a former professional mixed martial artist and has been a congressman since 2012. So, I feel like, although he has no military background, so I'm quite surprised that he's willing to go in on his own and risk himself for the sake of other people. But it's a pleasant surprise. It's good to see people doing good things. I mean, I'm going to go on to some other members of the House that have done similar things, but not to the same extent as this. So, Mullin says, this is a sad day for our country. This was a few days ago when Biden was announcing the withdrawal. Americans have been stranded in Afghanistan by the Biden administration and now left to defend themselves from terrorists overrunning the country. Our motto of our military is leave no man behind, but today that's exactly what President Biden did. And credit to him, he has gone out and done something about it. So he's defied all guidance by US officials. The House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, and Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy all tried to dissuade him from going, saying, no, you can't go. And Kevin McCarthy brings up a good point that any member that I've heard that might go, I have explained to them that I don't think they should. I think it creates a great risk. You've got enough Americans over there. They could be held hostage by the Taliban, and they'd make a point out of holding a member of Congress. I think you'd take the military away from doing their job of getting out as many Americans as they can. And this was a little while ago, to be fair. This was before all of the American troops had left. But now all the American troops are gone, and he really is the last ditch effort to get these people out, because, of course, I think it was yesterday the last American soldier left Afghanistan.
Well, we've seen what has happened in other countries where we had ISIS and so on going on, and the Kurds and all that, going back to the Iraq war and all that. If you don't have legitimate armies in there, you're just going to have a patchwork quilt of mercenaries going in there, because that's the only route to get into the country, perhaps, for veterans and other people that want to try and get in there and help on one side or the other. That's what Afghanistan is going to go like, just like those other countries did,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of uncertain how it's going to go, because I know there are still some people trapped there, and
but they've got ISIS there as well, you see.
Of course, yeah.
So once they declare this as a new Islamic, what are they calling it? Another caliphate?
Yeah, I would say.
But
so,
it will basically become another caliphate. People will start going from all over the world to join it because they're fanatical Islamists and they want to actually be with the Taliban or with ISIS. And then you're going to have people like him and other people who, ex-army, who want to go over there.
He's not actually ex-military, though, yeah.
No, fair play to him. But I expect he knows a lot of people who are.
I would imagine so, yeah.
And fair play to them, because there are going to be people who feel very strongly to go back in and try and rescue Americans and other non-Afghans who are stranded there. And Afghans who were helping us, of course, who are still stranded there.
I don't really know what the plan is to get them out. I've not really seen much about it. I suppose they want to keep it under wraps, don't they? But I wanted to go on about how he's actually planned to help them out. So apparently, according to the Washington Post, he reached out to the US ambassador for Tajikistan, saying that he needed assistance in transporting a huge amount of cash into the country, I'm assuming to help him get them out, saying he was going to neighbouring Afghanistan to rescue 5 American citizens. He said that he was planning to hire a helicopter to carry out the rescue himself. However, apparently the the diplomat said that they couldn't get around Tajikistan's laws on bringing a large amount of cash over to Afghanistan. I imagine that's to prevent terrorists joining the Taliban or ISIS or what have you. So I can understand, although I don't agree with them putting up barriers. I think
has he managed to do this then?
Well,
has he managed to get a sort of rescue mission together?
Apparently, late as of yesterday, they were officials have said they were unsure where he is. So we don't actually know. And he's not responded to multiple messages. And he has also sought to get to Afghanistan through other means as well. Apparently last week, this wasn't really reported on, he travelled to Greece and sought permission to travel from Afghanistan, but the Pentagon prevented him from doing so, basically. They just said, no, you can't do that, and stopped him. So he had to use different means. So he's really gone off the grid. He's probably annoying lots of people in senior positions in American politics and in the intelligence agencies, but at least he's not sitting idly by and letting these people stay there. He's doing something about it.
I should imagine that the families of the dead soldiers and the injured soldiers will be cheering him on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you should have seen some of the things that the mothers of the dead soldiers were saying about Joe Biden and how basically it was all his fault. So they're not very supportive of how they've dealt with this. So someone from his office has confirmed, though, I'm not sure how true this is yet because it's a relatively new story, that he's currently completely safe. Obviously, they're not saying where he is because that might be dangerous for him. But both he and his office have asserted that they are going to try and do their best to continue to do anything in their power to bring home all Americans from war zones that President Biden has abandoned. So, fair play to you, I
think
say.
He's a very brave man.
Absolutely. Of course, the State Department has declined to comment about Mullin's attempt to travel, and they're trying to sweep it under the rug because, of course, it makes them all look bad if he's going and doing this of his own volition. And you've got to respect it. This is how politicians should be behaving, I think, not being discouraged, but going out and putting themselves on the line to help people. So, as people may have been paying attention...
Perhaps we shouldn't be... I mean, people will say, well, maybe we shouldn't be saying, because it's by speaking about it, we're encouraging other people to copy him and go rushing out there. And but I think, unfortunately, Afghanistan is going to become lawless, and there are going to be people from all over the world, basically, who are going to go there for a variety of reasons.
Well, I think if people are prepared to do it, then okay. But I think from a legal standpoint, don't do it. But also, I respect him for doing it. But
I hope his own party don't
kick him out.
Yeah, because
I don't think they will, really. I think it looks really good for the Republicans.
I hope so. I mean, there might be some that say, well, he's abandoning his own constituents by rushing off abroad and could get himself killed. Do you know what I mean? There is that side of it, I suppose.
Think there is an argument to be had there.
But on the other hand, this is such a disaster for American foreign policy that anybody trying to do anything to help get people back that are stranded out there, I think,
it's commendable, yeah. So, rather confusingly, President Biden last night in his address to the nation said the evacuation from Afghanistan was an extraordinary success for some reason. And this Reuters article says, President Joe Biden on Tuesday called the evacuation from Afghanistan an extraordinary success in his first public remark since the United States withdrew its military from the country on Monday, ending a 20-year war. But I don't understand how on earth he can claim such a thing. Even his own supporters have acknowledged that it was a complete disaster. So either he's deliberately lying and trying to make himself feel or look better to the public, or he's just so deluded that he thinks it was a success while the entire world looks on in horror.
Well, I'm a lot older than you, Josh. I'm a lot older than you, and I can remember the American withdrawal from Saigon, and I can remember that. I was, in my teens at the time. And I can remember the Bill Clinton American policy disaster where he sent the Marines into Somalia, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. And they got killed, beheaded, dragged through the streets, bodies hung up on lampposts, and that was 1973, because the very next year Oh, wait a minute. No, it's probably a bit too early, but it was the year before the Rwandan massacre.
Okay.
So if you can pin a date on the Rwandan massacre, it was the very
Was
year
that
before.
the Rwandan genocide?
Yeah,
I think that was the 90s,
94, so this
Yeah.
was 93. And because Clinton had lost American soldiers, he'd actually sent them in to try and rescue hostages. And they were slaughtered, basically. And because of that, America refused then to treat Rwanda as a genocide. And those of us who are old enough can remember the dreadful press conferences of Madeleine Albright, where she was challenged by the world's media to declare it a genocide and wouldn't declare it a genocide. And therefore, the other countries that had peacekeeping troops in Rwanda were not allowed to fire on these gangs of people committing, horrible atrocities, because America was vetoing it and not calling it a genocide. And so some of us can remember the other terrible American, foreign policy disasters. But this one, I mean, the sight of those people standing in the trench of sewage, trying to get the attention, of our soldiers, British as well, American soldiers, and other soldiers of other countries as well. I mean, I don't think that image will ever leave us.
And especially considering that's where the terrorist attack was as well.
And that's what your suicide bomber is going to aim straight for, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Where the people are packed the most closely together. That was just, I don't think any of us are ever going to forget that.
No.
And this man, Biden, can try and pull the wool over people's eyes as much as he likes. They can try and, but we're never ever going to forget it.
No, and I think it will be one of the things that is going to remain part of his legacy. Like you have Obama with Benghazi, you have Clinton with Rwanda.
There's one thing that Biden said that I thought, I actually agree with him about that. And that was when he said, you can't compare this to the fight against the Vietnamese, because they were an actual proper organised army and it was an actual war. Mm-hmm. That is the only thing I agree with him about. But but he can't use that as an excuse. I mean, this was just a complete and utter farce.
Yeah, and
this withdrawal from
the whole
Afghanistan.
reason that it was even at that date in the first place as well is because of the symbolism of 9/11, right? That's why he wanted to withdraw by that date.
That was just pure theatre to try and get it all done and dusted in time.
Trump was saying May 1st, wasn't he? That's what the deal he negotiated with Pompeo and the Taliban, and they had that in the sand, and we still don't know why Biden has actually done that. So it's still apparently just left by the wayside. No one's really questioning him why he extended it in the first place.
On the sight of those Taliban fighters dressed up in all the American combat gear.
Oh, it's weird, isn't it? I remember seeing a video of them with all of the combat gear, with an M16 going to American fighter helicopters, I suppose. I don't know what they were precisely. And it just seemed really weird. It just kind of hammered home that, they really did lose. It is a loss. And I mean, not they, I mean, we were there as well, of course. Was
this another press conference where he walked away at the end and didn't take questions?
I think he does that for everything now. So on a bit of a lighter note, I thought we can laugh about something a little bit. So here we have a Dr. Baha Jali, and she says, for 8.5 years, I taught at the American University of Afghanistan as a faculty member of the academic administration. I founded the first gender studies program in Afghanistan's history there. All our work, hopes, dreams, progress, only to have it snatched away so needlessly. And the Taliban replied to this, and he says, hello, I'm from the Taliban. Gender studies classes teach that paedophilia, man-boy love, is a human right. Gail Rubin, one of the world's leading feminists and founders of gender studies, says that older men having sex with little boys is a human right. This is forbidden by Allah.
Right. Well, there's two things to take away from that, isn't it? They're probably right. Paedophilia probably is something that you're taught about on gender studies courses.
I mean, I don't doubt it. I've never been on one.
You're
but
probably taught about it.
There's lots of horrendous stuff that they're taught in those classes.
It may be forbidden by Allah, but we've all heard the stories from troops who've come back from Afghanistan in the last 20 years, that it's actually very common over there.
Well, that the man-boy thing is something that our supposed allies practice, but the Taliban outlaw that practice, and they're more interested in so-called changing it in a heterosexual way, I guess. But it's just as weird and paedophilic. I mean, they're not defensible.
But isn't it amazing that the Taliban can just come up on Twitter and...
Yeah,
and it's perfectly right for them to be on Twitter, but somebody like Marion Miller, a woman, can tweet somebody else's picture of a suffragette ribbon on a fence
and goes
and get took to court.
Yeah, or Donald Trump, not on Twitter.
Yeah.
And the Taliban are.
Unbelievable.
Actual terrorists are on Twitter. Donald Trump is not. A bit weird, really.
These are people who, even as we speak, are actually going door to door. They've got lists of people. Some of those lists might even have come from American...
Our own embassies, yeah.
American
I know
embassies,
that, in the UK, we left a list behind, but supposedly we did everything in our power to get rid of it. Even
as we speak, they're trying to find people who worked for the government or worked for the broadcasters or worked in these universities or something who they now see as traitors.
I have seen them executing people in the street as well, which is obviously awful. But not to lower the tone too much.
No, but I mean... Even the idea of gender studies course in an Afghanistan university just seems bizarre, doesn't it?
I'm amazed that it existed in the first place.
Yeah.
And there were people that were willing to do it, but never mind. I wanted to not end on a depressing note.
No.
The Taliban were making fun of the West in a silly way by posting internet memes. So if we could go through a few of these, there they are, pointing at all of the US's weapons with the Talibanized meme faces. And if we go on to the next one, there they are, recreating the Iwo Jima flag raising with their own flag, wearing American equipment by the looks of it as well.
And are those actually from the Taliban? Are they?
Yeah, it's cut off here a little bit because it's a screenshot, but you can see the Taliban flag. I don't want your audience to think I'm trivialising, but at least they've got a sense of humour. Well, yeah, I mean, I was quite amazed that they engage on Twitter and post jokes and stuff like that. I was just like, I thought they were very stern. I mean, there are things that they've done that are awful, obviously. I'm not demeaning that, but it's just very strange, I suppose. I thought it was...
And how they get away with it, how they are not banned from Twitter, when so many other people are.
Yeah, I think no one should really be banned from any platform, but here we are. Also... Taliban, I think we've covered this before, but I'm going to go over it very quickly. The Taliban got a question about freedom of speech, and he said you should ask to US companies like Facebook, who claim to promote it while still censoring. I mean, I never thought the Taliban would have more sense than a lot of the UK's mainstream media, for example. Like, it's a little bit depressing, really. And of course, the thing that we've shown before of August 15th and then August 16th when the Taliban took over, and the I think it's a burqa, isn't it? When the face is uncovered, I can't tell the difference. But anyway, another thing that happened recently is there was an interview with a Taliban commander, and the interviewer had someone just standing. He had loads of fighters standing behind him with firearms, clearly just like, yes, if you say a word wrong, we're going to sort you out, sort of thing. So if you could just scroll down to the picture.
Oh, yes, this poor man.
And you can just tell from his facial expression that he's not a happy man. But yeah, anyone who thinks that there's a moderate face to the Taliban or the Taliban have changed, they haven't.
This is not a peaceful transfer of power. This is another revolution for them, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And just to make that point, there was an Afghan singer who was murdered because the Taliban forbid music, and obviously I'm not going to show you any of the videos or anything of that. But yeah, the Taliban are no different than they ever were, and you shouldn't believe that they have changed. They definitely haven't.
No, and I think that congressman who's, hats off to him, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's trying to do something that, and you'd never think a time would come when you would applaud people running off to countries like this to be mercenaries and things. But actually, if he can save a few people, let's hope he can.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to prelotuseaters.com and get access to all our premium content.
Things like our book club, where we examine classics like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World and examine the themes that underpin it, and how we're getting worryingly close to that, or modern books like Mark Sidwell's The Long March, which is how exactly we ended up in the current cultural situation we're in and what Conservatives can do about it. Or you can check out the other series we have, such as our Contemplation series, where Hugo and Josh decided to, in the latest one, have a look at an examination on the ways that other elections have been rigged for no reason at all. Or you can check out our Epoch series, which is one of my personal favorites, because this is where I get to talk about history. And I love talking about just random things from history. And one of the great things we can do with this series is talk about those things that aren't so often discussed. So, I mean, you can talk about Xerxes' army, the vast army that invaded Greece during the Greco-Persian Wars. Or we can go through things like Herodotus' view on the Scythians. Who are they? You probably don't know, but they used to be quite an important people a long time ago, and they're very, very interesting. We've got some really good reports about them. Or we've got premium podcasts, which is things we generally don't want to put outside of the paywall because we might get in trouble for them, such as the list of things that Alex Jones was right about. Or we do just very interesting discussions because there are things that we do lots of work on. Another one is that I'm particularly proud of is where Christopher Hitchens, the famous new atheist, would have fallen during the modern culture wars, because he probably wouldn't have been very woke. But we also have lots of interviews and articles and other things on the website that you can sign up to enjoy, and we're really proud of them.
So if any of that sounds good to you, go over to lotuseaters.com and sign up for as little as £5 a month to support us keep the show going, and also to get access to all the content. Thank you and goodbye.